everyone, it's Kelly. Happy New Year's. I hope you're having a great first day of 2021. I am here to share with you the 13 books that I've read in December. December was a fantastic reading month. Most of them are graphic novels, so is it really that great? I don't know. I'm sorry for my hair. I'm a mess. So, let's just take it down, shall we? So, I'm just gonna go. No, I'm not gonna go in order of the stack. I'm gonna make it even more difficult for me. The first book I read in December, or finished in December, I started it in November. It was Splendid in the Vial by Erik Larson. This is my first book that I've ever read by Erik Larson, and it's about Churchill's first year as Prime Minister during World War II. And it talks about all of the bombing, the constant bombing from the Germans, and how Britain was trying to find out what technology they were using and to mess up their beams, and how constant, how the RAF fighters couldn't fly at night. And it goes into detail about how Churchill likes to walk around in his birthday suit, how he would hold all of these gatherings at his country house when he wasn't at 10 Downing Street. It has times from his daughter and how she used to go to parties when they were supposed to be like blacking out. And it was just, so I ended up giving this a 3. Great at being focused on the war. It doesn't go into much detail about anything else besides the parties. And there's this one, while I was reading it at the very beginning, it goes into one of the assistants, his life, and how he's infatuated with this one girl, and that she doesn't want anything to do with him. She doesn't want to marry him, and he's all pissed off about it. And he goes, "Oh, well, she's a woman. She doesn't know any better because she won't find no one else like me." And like, really? It was an unnecessary piece of information. But he eventually becomes somebody to the royal family. I guess that's why he's in this. And it goes into detail about marriages and his daughter-in-law and how her marriage to his son is just awful, and her affairs, and it goes into a lot of affairs and adultery and stuff like that. So, next book I read, it was for a blog tour, and it is Fond by Winter Pure. This is a male erotica. It's set during their time in college, and Gil, he's known as the campus playboy, and Barnaby, he is an inexperienced 20-year-old. I think he's 20. He's inexperienced. He's still a virgin, and he goes to Gil to gain experience. Or he goes as a dare. So it's very erotic. In the first 10 pages, they're having sex. So, it's a college 50 Shades of Grey. And that's all it is. It's just sex, sex, sex. A little bit of romance, sex, sex, sex. Conflict, sex, sex, sex. And it's BDSM and pet play. It involves a deer onesie and collars and a dog bed. Really enjoyed this book. I love Barnaby. He's like the sweetest cinnamon roll, and he just wants love and attention. And Gil, hello, male lady. But Gil, it doesn't go into his personal story as much. I mean, he does self-harm. So if that's a trigger, do not read this book because it mentions a lot of self-harm. And there's some talk about suicide or not being on this planet anymore. So if that's a trigger, don't pick this up. But there was a point where I was disgusted with Gil. He was force feeding Barnaby, and Barnaby got so sick that he threw up, and he was just like, and I was like, I didn't understand it. So I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5. And will I pick up anything else by the author? Yes. The next 5 books, were the Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the graphic novels. So it is The Lightning Thief, Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. I ended up giving these a 3-4 stars. The first 3 books, the art style was my favorite. I really enjoyed it, but the story, I felt it was choppy. It didn't make any sense. They cut so much out of the story in all 3 books. Like, it would talk about one thing and then jump to another scene without going into detail how it got there. It expected you to know what it was talking about. And then, books 4 and 5, the art style changes. First book, the Oracle, she was wearing a skimpy dress. The Oracle is this dead thing, a girl. And it was just wearing a skimpy lingerie type dress. And I was like, why would you put that kind of art in a book that's meant for young kids? And I was just, that rubbed me the wrong way. And the Lotus Hotel part, condensed. It was just like, here, there, gone. I'm like, it doesn't go into detail about anything. It's like, oh yeah, we can stay here. And then, do you think something strange from one frame to the next? Oh, we can stay here. There's something strange. Okay. If you were going to cut that much out of the Lotus Hotel, then just cut the whole damn thing. Because it didn't bring nothing to the story. And so, that was The Lightning Thief. I gave it a 3. Sea of Monsters. I liked it even more, but it cut out more information. The art style is still great. And if you have not read the full books, then you won't know what's going on in these 3. Granted, all 5 are written by the same person, Robert Venditti. Adapted by Robert Venditti. It's just that when the artist was switched, then Robert Venditti decided to put more of the story into these graphic novels. So, the first 3, not my fave. I love the art style. But, it seems like a complete flip. The art style, not my favorite. It makes them more childish and more cartoony. I mean, Clarice did look butch in these ones. And then she just looked like a freaking teenager that was going through puberty. I mean, it was like cartoony, but she was like heavyweight, not butch. So, but there was more of the story. So I ended up giving The Lightning Thief a 3 out of 5. Ended up giving The Sea of Monsters a 4. The Titan's Curse a 3. Ended up giving The Battle of the Labyrinth, which is my favorite, a 3. And then The Last Olympian got a 3. In the Titan's Curse, it includes Blackjack, but in the first two, it says nothing about Blackjack. You're expected to know who Blackjack is in the third graphic novel. And it mentions the name of the cruise ship that was not mentioned in the second book whatsoever. So you're expected to know these things going into these graphic novels. And if you have not read the series, then you will not know what is going on, because this series did a piss poor job of telling the story accurately. So, yes, I ended up giving these a 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. Will I read the other graphic novel adaptations of the Rick Riordan series? No, because I don't want to be disappointed with the others. Even though I'm reading the books and know what happens, these are just bad. The next book I read out loud to my kids, this was my youngest, Adeline, her book from an Alcott Junior box, and that is Quintessence by Jess Redman. It's about a falling star, and this little girl, she has to help put the star back in the sky. So, it's about elements, it's about friendship, and I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5. Chapters are short. I really enjoyed it. The shopkeeper was a favorite character. While I was reading out loud, I gave him this voice. Oh, my stars! And because I'm not going to spoil it. You have to read, but I thought he was like elf-like. That's how I pictured him, and I gave him the, oh, my stars! The squeaky, high-pitched voice. And so, he was a favorite character. The one thing that I did have a problem with this book is that Alma, the main character, she describes these episodes that she goes into, but they're not fully explained. She goes, oh, the last time I had an episode, and I feel an episode coming on, and I haven't told my parents that my recent episode was only 2 days ago and not 2 months ago. It doesn't go into her episodes. It doesn't describe what it is, what exactly they are. And so you're assuming that they're panic attacks, and I think they are panic attacks, because the first day in her new school, she was verbally harassed. Well, not verbally harassed. She got pushed and got called a weirdo, and it brought on an episode. And so, that's one thing that didn't sit well with me, because it wasn't explained, but it was used as a plot point. So, I've read another graphic novel, and I gave it a 4 out of 5. And it is Wires and Nerve Volume 1 by Marissa Meyer. It's the companion series to the Lunar Chronicles. Lunar Chronicles is a 4-book retelling of Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and Snow White. And so, the Lunar Queen has been dethroned. We have a new Lunar Queen, and she is tasked, Ego, with rounding up these rogue wolf soldiers. And she's going through, and she's like being her badass fashionista self, and sending these rogue soldiers back to Lunar so they can be rehabilitated and reintegrated into society. And one thing that I loved was that in the novella Stars Above, my favorite story is the very end. And it's not that story, but it's got something in this one that leads up to that story, and I loved it. But I don't like how the wolf soldiers were drawn, or how they look to this artist. He did a great job. I loved the art style. It's all blue toned, and it's got crest and thorn, and yeah, It's got Wolf and Scarlet. It's got Kai. It's got Cinder. It's got Winter and Jay. But Scarlet and Wolf were my favorite. And I'm just... I got the second one. If this did not have that one little scene, then I would have waited a couple months to get volume 2. But I need volume 2 because I think it's going to have more of my favorite story in that one. Hopefully. I'm hoping. If not, I'm going to be so disappointed. My expectations for volume 2 Gone Rogue is just so freaking high. But yes, I give this a 5 out of 5. Look, I don't have it on me, but it is Nosferatu by Joe Hill. And my mom let me borrow this book back in October, and I was going to save it for, I saved it for this month because it's Christmas Land. She told me not to read it around Christmas, and I should have listened to her. I've never listened to my mom. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching, but yeah, I don't listen to her. I found it creepy and disgusting, but I give it a 5 out of 5. So, I hated reading about the cat at the beginning and the dog. It said when she was looking for the cat and she found it, and it said it ran over the back. I just thinking about it and saying it out loud makes me upset for all of the stray cats in my neighborhood, including my outdoor cat that stays outside at night. The graveyard and the description of Charles Manx, creepy as fuck. I will not read the graphic novel adaptation because I do not want to see that. I saw pictures of how he was drawn. No, thank you. No. I'm terrified. So, I will be watching the show on AMC. I know it was canceled after 2 seasons, I think. But I'm still going to go watch it. And, yeah. If you don't know what Nosferatu is about, it's about this man who has in his mind, and it's called Christmas Land. And he kidnaps these children away from horrible futures that he thinks are going to happen to them. And he kidnaps kids. And one kid is kidnapped, and his mom comes and rescues him. And it's a big deal. So, yes, my husband's home. The next book is a favorite, and that is Between Shades of Grey by VeryDice. And I read this in one day. I've made a thing now where I'm going to read VeryDice at the end of the year. Last year I read Salt to the Sea at the end of the year, and then this month I read Between Shades of Grey, and it's about this Lithuanian family that gets dragged from their home in the middle of the night and is deported to a Siberian work camp, and by Russians or the Soviets. And I didn't know much about Soviet Lithuanian or the Baltic states. I didn't know much about that because it's not talked about, because the Soviets were the American allies in World War II, so of course it's not going to be talked bad about. But then at the end of World War II, and the Monuments Men were racing against the Soviets to get most of the art back. I don't know why I'm talking about one book instead of talking about Between Shades of Grey. So it's about this girl named Lena. She is an artist, and she is her and her family are on this cattle car going into Siberia, and she's worried about her father, and she is trying to draw these pictures to leave a trail for her father to find them and rescue them. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 if you have not realized, but I could not put it down. I had to keep reading, and I am going to be watching the movie as soon as I possibly can. It's on Amazon Prime. And so, also, I need to learn more about this part of history, not just the Japanese and Germans. I know one thing from Rita Sepetys' books is that the Lithuanians, they relied on the Germans to come save them from the Soviets, and they thought that, I could be completely wrong, but I think they saw the Germans as a type of a lesser evil than the Soviets. The Germans were still bad, but they wanted to be free from, or not be occupied by, the Soviet Union. That's what I think. I can be completely wrong. Like I said, I don't know much about that part of history because I wasn't taught it. And I can't wait to watch the movie. So I think next year I'm going to be reading Out of the Easy. It's not World War II, but it's a Rita Sepetys novel. So I'm going to be reading that next year. And yeah, I love this book. The second book that I read out loud to my kids is Frozen 2: Forest of Shadows by Camilla Binko. This is set between the first movie and the second movie. It's about Anna and Elsa finding the secret room that has a magic spell book, and it deals with nightmares, and I'm trying to find a way to, and where to glare. And it deals with a Natmara, a wolf, and so Anna and Elsa are trying to figure out how to get rid of this nightmare because it's causing the animals to fall asleep and the crops to be destroyed and everyone to be stuck in a nightmare state. And it's just great. It's got Olaf, it's got Kristoff, it's got Sven, and yeah, it's not cartoony at all. It's very dark and it's not twisted, but it's got, every other chapter has like a suspenseful ending, and I always seem to stop at those chapters and pick up the next day, and my oldest was like, what's going to happen? I'm sus. And I'm like, please don't say sus. You know, sus is suspicious, but don't say sus. So, I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5. I like the wolf aspect and the nightmare, but it's a good segue into the second movie because they ask more about the parents, and it doesn't give much away about the parents besides the scarf. And yeah, the epilogue gets into a good segue into the second movie. And yeah, I highly recommend watching the first movie, reading this, watching the second movie, and I'm hoping that Dangerous Secrets that I'm going to read next month is a companion to the second movie and not giving too much away of the second movie, if you know what I mean. But yes, highly recommend. If you have a Frozen obsessed little girl or little boy in your house, then pick this up and read out loud, or have them read it and they will freaking enjoy it. Arendelle's in trouble. Come save Arendelle. I finally read a book that's been on my TBR for 2 years. And I have shown it in previous TBRs because the cover is beautiful. It is The Seamstress by Allison Pittman. And I just love the swirls and the detail. It's meant to be thread. And then the French flag is the tricolor banner that the rebels wore in the Revolution. And I think this is meant to be Marie Antoinette. I loved this book. I was not expecting some of the religious aspects, but I should have expected it because it came from a Christian book company, Tyndale. It came from Tyndale House Publishing. I got this as a review copy, and yeah, it has, well, I read the author's note, and she said that this is her interpretation of The Seamstress from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and I love A Tale of Two Cities. So going into this book, I was kind of skeptical if I was going to like it or not, because it was historical and it was set into the French Revolution, but I should have not been skeptical because I like A Tale of Two Cities and I liked Les Mis. It's about two girls, Renee and Laurette. They are orphans. Laurette's parents, it's a murder-suicide, and Renee's mother, she dies, and she is then abandoned by her aunt, or her father, and so they get taken in by this not wealthy, but this farmer who was well known in the community, Gagnon, and I think I'm saying his name right, Gagnon, and they grow up, and one day Renee is in the field with the sheep. She's a sheep herder. She can do the whistle, and so she's in charge of the sheep with the dogs. And one day this beautiful carriage is going down the dirt road, and it was a heavy flooding previous days, and so there's a lot of holes in it, and the carriage flips and breaks. And so the occupant inside this carriage is one of Marie Antoinette's ladies in waiting, and her name is Madame Gisela, and she takes a liking to Renee because Renee fixes the dress that Marie Antoinette has given this lady as a gift, and Renee fixes it, and then Madame Gisela takes Renee into Paris to Versailles, and she becomes le courtier, the seamstress. I don't know if I'm saying that right in French. I don't speak French, obviously. And every chapter heading, it's in French. Bless the baby.
Thank you.
This cover makes a whole lot more sense now. Like I said, I think it's Marie Antoinette wearing the tricolor sash that she was so adamant against wearing. And I know next to nothing about Marie Antoinette. And this book made her seem like that she really was two different people, or she was seen as a frivolous and a non-caring person to the French people. Let them eat cake, and then that's not mentioned at all in this book whatsoever. And so I don't know anything besides that phrase from Marie Antoinette. So I'm gonna have to read up on her and research her more about how she was with the people close to her to see if this is an accurate representation. Ended up giving The Seamstress a 4 out of 5. And so the last book that I read in 2020 was Lock and Key Volume 3, Crown of Shadows. And I'm not going to go into detail about this one. It's basically a family that their father was murdered, and the mom moves them halfway across the country to the dad's old childhood home, and there's these things to do with keys, and each volume is based around a certain key. Like the first one opens up a door and your soul goes out of your body. The second key was it could open up your head and you can take things in and put things out. And I will be watching the show sometime in 2021. So, and I give this a 3 out of 5. But that is it for my December wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and comment down below. Have you read any of these books? What did you think about your reading year? Did you have a good reading year besides all of the crap that 2020 was? And I will see you in my next video.